Good evening, and welcome to the City Council, Norman Utilities Authority, Norman Municipal Authority, and Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority meeting of June 25th, 2024. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Ball,
Present.
Councilmember Schuler,
For the last time, yes. Here.
Councilmember Montoya,
Here.
Councilmember Grant,
Here.
Councilmember Nash,
Here.
Councilmember Foreman,
For the last time, here.
Councilmember Holman,
Here.
Councilmember Peacock,
Here.
Mayor Hykela.
I am here. Would you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda here is a resolution commending and extending an appreciation to Lauren Schuler for serving as Ward 2 council member. I need a motion to adopt or reject the resolution.
Motion to adopt. Second.
I have a motion and a second. The motion on the floor is to adopt the resolution. Council members,
Brenda.
you may cast your vote. You might as
And the motion to adopt the resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll read the resolution. A resolution of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, extending appreciation to Lauren Schuler for serving as Ward 2 council member in Norman, Oklahoma. Whereas the health and well-being of a democratic society, participation of citizens in the affairs of government, and those individuals who are elected take on the responsibility to establish public policy and to meet the challenge of complex issues and problems to the best of their abilities. And whereas those individuals who seek to run for public office at the municipal level do so out of deep caring and concern for the future of their community and bring their own unique talents, values, and abilities to the job, and they assume a demanding task to establish an understanding of the issues, and they do so in addition to work and family responsibilities and demands. Whereas Lauren Schuler served on the City Council representing Ward 2 from May 11th, 2021 until July 2nd, 2024. And whereas Lauren served on the City Council Oversight Committee from May 11th, 2021 to July 2nd, 2024, serving as chairman from July 4th, 2023 to July 2nd, 2024, and the Community Planning and Transportation Committee from May 11th, 2021 to July 2nd, 2024. And whereas Lauren served as council's alternate representative to the Oklahoma Municipal League Board from July 5th, 2022 to July 2nd, 2024. And whereas during her tenure, she has worked tirelessly on homelessness, affordable housing, and strong neighborhoods. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, that the Council of the City of Norman, on behalf of the entire citizenry of Norman, commends and extends an appreciation to Lauren Schuler for her service to this community as council member for Ward 2 and wish her well in her future endeavors. Passed and adopted this day. Do you want to go down there, or do you want to do it?
Go down there so they can get a picture.
You. We get to do our yeah. Okay. It almost made me cry. I was like, I'm gonna be strong. This is gonna be fine. So I wrote down a few things. I didn't write a whole speech out. It's kind of not really my my vibe. But I did write out some bullet points that I wanted to share, and I will not wax on too long about this because I know we've got a whole meeting to get onto, and we've got to honor our other outgoing council member. But I just want to start off in saying, like, I don't know how you encompass 3 years of service, and the work that we do at the municipal level is something that is ongoing. It is 365, 24/7 in so many ways, and I know our staff members really kind of carry a lot of the work that happens at the city, and I really want to commend the staff here that has worked so diligently alongside myself and other council members, because without them, we would not be able to run the city, and I know that we frustrate them a lot sometimes with the things that we, argue on about policy this, policy that, but we would not be able to do our work as a city without them. I also want to thank, of course, the constituents of Ward 2 for believing in me and allowing me to serve them for the last 3 years. It was a really hard decision to not continue to serve and to run again, and I'll talk a little bit more about why I made that decision last year. And then I also want to thank my fellow council members, currently the ones sitting up here on the dais, but in the time that I've been on council, I've served with 14 total council members, 2 from Ward 1, 3 from Ward 3, 2 from Ward 4, 2 from Ward 5, and then the 3 over here that are kind of holding down the other side for those years, and then also 2 mayors. So it's been quite a revolving door of people that you see up here, and that can cause some challenges with consistency and institutional knowledge. I don't know how Councilmember Holman is going to sum up his time when he eventually leaves council, because he has more tenure than every single one of us combined right now. So I don't know how what kind of speech yours is going to go on for days and days. I would like to wish specifically Councilmember Peacock, who will be succeeding me in the Ward 2 role, and there will be some kind of gap in communication. We've got to turn in kind of our communicating devices, our cell phone, our iPads, and so just know that there might be some gap in conversation for Ward 2, but the Action Center is always open and available to you. The city staff will make sure that he knows what's kind of coming forward. We're also working on a transition period of making sure that the emails that I have in my inbox will also be relayed to him. So I want to make sure that we are thinking about continuity of service and continued relationship building with that. I would encourage citizens and future council members to really lean into the nonpartisanship of this role. And I know that we get really heated sometimes in Norman, and it can be very divisional, and we can entrench on either side. But I think all of us come to this dais with a servant heart and to want to serve our community to the best of our ability. And oftentimes those are really challenging and difficult conversations that we have to navigate through. But I think it is the ultimate role of public service to be listening to our constituents and to make decisions based on the feedback that we are getting. And we represent a ward, of course, but ultimately we are here for the success of the whole city of Norman, and working together I think is really important. I would also encourage our citizens to stay as engaged as you have always been. I think that's one of the most amazing things about Norman is how engaged our citizens are in this process, that you show up, you ask questions, you push us on things that you think are not the way that we should be, directing policy or things like that. And we've got a lot of big issues ahead of us in Norman. So the next council really has a lot of things to navigate through and wade through, and it could not be possible without that feedback from citizens. So I ultimately need to give lots of thanks to everyone. I don't want to name anybody else out because I don't want to miss anybody. There have just been so many people that have driven the success of me being able to be on council and to do the things that I've done. But really, the person that I need to thank above anybody else is my husband, Ryan. Ryan and I met basically two or 3 weeks before I started on council, and so he has been an amazing support system for me here. I don't know that I could have done the things that I did without a partner supporting me and encouraging me, and taking on different roles for our family that he might not have had to take on if I was there. And ultimately, I decided that he needed some more of my time. We've been together 3 years, married last year. We've had a lot of life moments in the last 3 years since I've been on council. I'm currently 6 months pregnant with our first 2 children. I'm pregnant with twins, and so this was something that was going to be really hard, I think, to continue at the pace and the task that it takes to be on city council. And so don't worry, I will have plenty to do when I go off council. Everyone's like, what are you going to do with all of your time? I think I'm going to be running around all over the place with children. And I know that there's been a lot of speculation around, okay, what's next for me? Where am I going? Ultimately, because of this massive life change with bringing 2 babies into the world, I will actually be moving from Norman, which is really sad and bittersweet. I've spent the last 14 years here of my life dedicating myself to the community, learning more about Norman, becoming really embedded as a community member. But we will be moving closer to my family to help support in raising our 2 girls. So I thank you for this honor to be able to serve in this capacity, and I hope that I've made some of you proud and that we've done a lot of really wonderful things together. But that, I guess, is all I have to say right now. So thank you, everyone.
Item number 2, a resolution commending and extending appreciation to Elizabeth Foreman for serving as Ward 6 council member. I need a motion to adopt or reject the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
A motion on the floor is to adopt the resolution. Council members, you may cast your vote.
All votes have been cast unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, I ought to have that. I'll read the resolution. A resolution of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, extending appreciation to Elizabeth Foreman for serving as Ward 6 council member in Norman, Oklahoma. Whereas the health and well-being of a democratic society depends on the active participation of citizens in the affairs of government and those individuals who are elected to take on responsibility to establish public policy and to meet the challenge of complex issues and problems to the best of their abilities, and whereas those individuals who seek to run for public office at the municipal level do so out of a deep caring and concern for the future of their community and bringing their own unique talents, values, and abilities to the job that they assume a demanding task to establish an understanding of the issues, and they do so in addition to work and family responsibilities and demands. And whereas Elizabeth Foreman served on City Council representing Ward 6 from July 7th, 2020 to July 2nd, 2024, and whereas Elizabeth served on the Finance Committee from July 7th, 2020 to July 2nd, 2024, and whereas Elizabeth served on the Board of Trustees for the Norman Retirement System from July 6th, 2021 to July 2nd, 2024, and whereas from the beginning, Elizabeth has been a strong advocate for her constituents and was instrumental in getting council to support for the public safety study and to better access our public safety needs throughout the community. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, that the Council of the City of Norman, on behalf of the entire citizenry of Norman, commends and extends appreciation to Elizabeth Foreman for her years of service to this community as a council member for Ward 6 and wish her well in her future endeavors. Would you like to walk down front? Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, I've been okay about all of this, but I thought I should write it out, which is probably good because I'm having all sorts of feelings right now, so I do have a little speech prepared. Okay, so bear with me. Okay. So tonight is my last meeting on the dais, and next Tuesday evening, when the Ward 6 council-elect is sworn in, I will cease being councilmember foreman and be promoted back to resident. I've spent the last few weeks pondering this moment, my last time sitting up here, and what I would say. How do you sum up 4 years in just a matter of minutes? I've never been one to be long-winded in my comments, but tonight I fear I may be a bit more wordier than normal. I would like to thank the residents of Ward 6 for electing me to this office twice. More people voted for me in each of my elections than multiple candidates in multiple wards combined. Why? Because Ward 6 is an engaged ward, and I feel so incredibly lucky to have had the best ward that is kind, gracious, more curious than they are judgmental. They're educated on the issues, and they are vocal. Admittedly, in my first year on council, I would say that I was more like sentenced instead of elected because it was a really difficult year. But I feel blessed to have had your trust and support these last 4 years. And I hope I can continue to serve you in a different capacity in the near future. And I pray that you have found that I've served you and your interests well. Defund the police, recalling 5 of the 9 governing members of the city, neighbor versus neighbor, mask mandates, a global pandemic, business shutdowns, 2 a.m. ending Zoom council meetings, the passing away of a beloved colleague and community member, Dave Perry from Ward 2, 2 council members stepping down, multiple seat appointments, a freak October ice storm that knocked power out for days, an Arctic blast, rolling blackouts, Supreme Court rulings, lawsuits, a $1 billion hail event. And those were just my first 10 months on council. It was a hard year. And at the helm of all of that was our city staff. Brenda, apart from never knowing where my iPad is, or Daryl always asking you every Tuesday, what are we having for dinner? Because I like to live my life around meals. Greeting city staff by their first and last names. For example, hi, Chris Mattingly. Always the first and last names. Sending scary text messages to the city attorney, trying to freak her out, thinking I'm about to ask her something that I'm not. Who, by the way, is also leaving next week. Now, she will tell you she's for different reasons, but I sort of feel like my stepping down played a small factor, right? See, she said it. She admitted it. It's true. Me accosting the parks director, where you at, to answer all of my questions for my master's capstone project, making Jane Hudson exacerbated with my eccentric vocabulary between breaks, getting food, Anthony Francisco patiently answering all my questions, trying not to roll his eyes too hard at me. But apart from all that, I would like to think I was one of the least pain in the butt council members that you've ever had to work with, right? Maybe the best one. Can I get a nod? I got some nods. You can't see it, but I got some nods. Okay, so I've learned so much from all of you, and I could not have done this role without you and your patience and your expertise. I can talk so knowledgeably about so many boring things with confidence because of what you have taught me. I, too, have served with many different council members. I have served with 17 different people, and I'm currently the second longest serving council member on the dais, and the longest serving seatmate next to Councilmember Holman. So when the city finally opens his commemorative library, I hope that statistic is on a wall somewhere. I would really appreciate that. I briefly started this gig with a different Ward 5 council member, but after a few months, we got Nash. We lost him a little bit, but Happy Days returned and he came back. Councilmember Peacock and I walked into this fire together. When we filed our candidacy in December of 2019, the world looked a lot different than it did now, and we've had to handle a lot of it together. So our side of the dais has remained pretty consistent, and I've really enjoyed my time over here. Now that side of the dais has seen some characters. But no matter what, there is one thing that we all have together, and that's a trauma bond. And it was forged through all of the trials that we had to face together. And their friendship and support throughout all of this has been so incredibly important to me. We're like astronauts. Nobody knows, not many people know what it's like to be on this side of it but us. And no matter how close our family and friends are, we're the only ones who know what it's like to actually experience it and go through it. So to my beloved council friends, I will miss you. And to the not beloved council friends, well, okay. Smiles. Okay. So with all of my charm and wit in this speech that I prepared, you might find this hard to believe, but I have spent the last 4 years of my life being single. This is not exactly what I would call a man-catching position. And in fact, every single one of us up here has lost a relationship either professionally or personally. There is a price to pay to sit on this dais, and it's a cost I had not factored. But heavy is the head, I suppose. I say this because even though I've been single, I've always referred to the city of Norman as my boyfriend. At times, this relationship was very abusive and rocky, and there were times I didn't think that we would make it. But after placing some boundaries and finding the cadence of our love song, it's become a relationship of trust, growth, and mutual respect. And stepping down from council does not end our relationship, it just redefines it. So to those on council who will remain, and to those who will be sworn in next week, hear this. Don't mess with my boyfriend, because I'm going to be watching. And on that note, Mayor, back to you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, item number 3, a proclamation of the mayor of the city of Norman, Oklahoma, proclaiming Monday, July the 1st, 2024, as Southeastern Conference Day. I need a motion to acknowledge receipt of the proclamation.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. The motion on the floor is to acknowledge receipt of the proclamation. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to acknowledge receipt passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll read the proclamation. A proclamation of the mayor of the city of Norman, Oklahoma, proclaiming Monday, July 1st, 2024, as Southeastern Conference Day in the city of Norman. Whereas a pioneer in the integration of higher education and athletic competition, the Southeast is a leader on the national landscape for intercollegiate athletics and in the 21st century. And whereas the SEC has been a leader for intercollegiate athletics for the last 82 years and held its first championship game in 1992, and whereas the first SEC champions were crowned in 1993 in baseball, basketball, football, and outdoor track, and whereas the University of Oklahoma owns one of the greatest winning traditions in the intercollegiate athletics with 44 team national championships and looking forward to officially becoming a member of the SEC on July 1st, 2024. And whereas this historic move will be marked by a series of celebrations in Norman and throughout the state, beginning with a 5K glow run at 11 p.m. on June 30th, culminating with fireworks at midnight. Now therefore I, Mayor of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim Monday, July 1st, 2024, is Southeastern Conference Day in the City of Norman, and encourage students and residents to celebrate this day by participating in the activities planned at the Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. Recognize Josie to come down and take the proclamation.
It's always an honor and privilege to represent the University of Oklahoma. I appreciate the mayor, all the members of the city council, the city staff, all the luminaries and dignitaries in the audience here, that everybody's come together to make something very special happen. We're in the days leading up to July 1st, We want you all to feel welcome, to be part of the celebration as we recognize this transformational moment, if you will, of our university into a new conference. But it's the days and weeks and years ahead that are going to make the most difference. Our teams, the athletes that we draw, they run to their competitions, be it here or somewhere else in a new part of our country. And for us here in the city of Norman and our community, Cleveland County, to welcome so many people that'll come to our community and experience it for the first time. I know we're going to put our best foot forward. We're going to make them feel welcome and get them to come back over and over again. So I look forward to joining you in that particular endeavor and having a lot of exciting times ahead. Thank you for recognizing this, and Boomer Sooner.
Item number 4, a proclamation of the mayor of the city of Norman, Oklahoma, proclaiming the month of July 2024 as Parks and Recreation Month. I need a motion to acknowledge receipt of the proclamation.
Second.
A motion and second. The motion on the floor is to acknowledge receipt of the proclamation. Council members, you may cast your vote.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to acknowledge receipt passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll read the proclamation. A proclamation of the mayor of the city of Norman, Oklahoma, proclaiming the month of July 2024 as Parks and Recreation Month in the city of Norman. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of the communities throughout the country, including the city of Norman, and whereas our parks and recreation facilities are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring health of all citizens and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of our community and region. And whereas parks and recreations programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreations programs to increase, let me read that again. Whereas parks and recreations programs increase a community's economic prosperity through the increased property values and the expansion of local tax base, increased tourism, and the attraction and retention of businesses and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreations programs are fundamental to the environmentally well-being of our community. And whereas parks and recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, and improve the quality of air that we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And now therefore I, Mayor of the city of Norman, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2024 as Parks and Recreation Month in the city of Norman. If I can have Dr. Fun, Jason Olson, come down for us. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, thank you for supporting our park system. This is a month where we get to celebrate all of our parks, our community centers, our green spaces, our cultural centers, our programs. We should be very proud of our very complex park system that we have here in Norman, 67 parks. Now 7 community centers with the opening of the and Young Family Athletic Center, miles of trail systems, which we hope to expand in the future. And our green spaces are all about quality of life and all about our residents here in Norman. Thank you for supporting. We have some great programs going on in July. That's the reason that we're Parks and Recreation Month. There's not one parks department in the whole nation that does not celebrate July 4th. And we have one heck of a celebration coming for you. Not only do we have the state's biggest open golf tournament at Westwood. We also have a huge swim day going on at the same time at Westwood. If you can find a parking spot at Westwood, you're doing great. And we also have July 4th at Reeves Park, our Norman Fourth Fest, where we have the state's largest firework display. So please come join us. And our residents of Norman, please go out and enjoy parks. We know it's hot. Get there early, get your exercise in, or go visit one of our awesome cultural centers, or go by one of our rec centers. So thank you very much.
It's now time for council announcements, and I'll start with Ward 8.
Okay, thank you. So I don't have any announcements, but I do have a few parting words for our outgoing council members. So tonight, I'm going to take the opportunity to do something that I've never had the chance to do up here, and that is address both Lauren Schuler and Elizabeth Foreman by their full names, because tonight I speak to both of you as friends, not merely colleagues. So Elizabeth, you and I were forged together in the fire back in the summer of 2020. No one up here aside from STH can really speak to what that was like. I think you did a pretty good job highlighting the first 10 months. I'll just say it was very uncomfortable and very heated, but I'm grateful to have had you along for that ride and for both of us to still be here after all of it. You are tenacious and driven, and I know that this experience has prepared you for whatever you tackle next in life. Rest assured that we'll pick up and carry the mantle of radical sidewalks for you. Lauren, given the history that I have with CM Foreman, it's shocking that our friendship is actually older and predates our time together up here by a couple of years. Our bond was formed together as classmates of Leadership Norman, where we both grew and learned as Norman residents, striking the fire to become civic leaders and ultimately putting us on the same path to sit on this dais together. Over those years, you have been a trusted sounding board, a partner in policy work, and an unwavering friend that will be greatly missed. You are passionate, beyond intelligent, and so well equipped for this gig. I know that those two little ones won't be able to keep you down for long, and I can't wait to see what it is you do next. I know that you both will be incredible at whatever it is, and I hope that neither of you are strangers to Norman. You both have done amazing work for this city, and we are fortunate to have had your experience and your vision. Sadly, this is the last time that I will get to call you both this, but it's with great privilege that I get to say thank you for your service, Councilmember Schuler, and thank you for your service, Councilmember Foreman.
Thank you. A couple announcements before I get to talking about colleagues leaving. I do want to thank everybody that helped put on the Juneteenth Festival last Wednesday at Reeves Park, which is in Ward 7. Reeves Park is really, it always has been what I consider the community park. It's where I grew up going to 4th of July. It had my favorite playground as a kid, and it's where a lot of myself and family members have played youth sports over the years. And now we've added another wonderful event to Reeves Park with the Juneteenth Festival. I think this was the 4th year. And it has seemingly been getting exponentially larger each year in attendance. It was wonderful. It was great weather, and it was wonderful to see so many people at the park celebrating Juneteenth, live music, fireworks, all sorts of stuff. And I would highly encourage everybody to put that on your calendar for next June. I had several people, when I posted about it, say, I didn't even know about it. So next year, though, every June, Juneteenth, and from what I understand, Norman, I don't know if we're the only city but that does this, but our celebration is on the actual Juneteenth day. I think other cities may just celebrate it on the weekend of that. And so we do it on the actual day right now. And so put that on your calendar for next year at Reeves Park, I think. So wonderful event, and I appreciate everybody that put that on. Also would encourage everybody to attend the 4th of July festivities at Reeves Park next Thursday. Wonderful time every year, and I was surprised to hear that we had the largest fireworks show in the state, considering there's 2 other cities that are much larger than us and a bunch of casinos that spend a lot of money on that type of stuff too. So that's very exciting though, and for me, I live next to Reeves Park, as many of you know, so I don't have to, me and Evan, we don't even have to leave our porches and we can see it, so that's one of the benefits for us. Also want to mention this Thursday, Community Planning and Transportation Committee at 4 o'clock here at City Hall. Available to watch online on the City of Norman YouTube channel. Also available for replay if you're not available at 4. But we will be getting our monthly report and discussion with city staff on public transit, ridership, projects, bus stops, the transit center, anything related to public transit, the on-demand system. So any questions, comments, suggestions you have about that, please send them to us, or feel free to attend the meeting or watch it, and we will be sure to ask those questions and have that discussion with city staff as we do every month in that committee. We'll also be talking about capital projects, so street projects, sidewalk projects, really any type of city construction type project you might see that's ongoing right now and that might be upcoming in the next year. So a couple interesting topics, at least as far as I'm concerned, that you might want to tune into. And then lastly, to talk about my colleagues that are parting, they mentioned how many council members they've served with, and every year at this time, I like to mention how many I've served with, and it's right at 40, I think, at the moment. The average term served is 1.5 terms, I think, so not even 2 full terms in the 11 years I've been doing this. So it is a very demanding job, as they mentioned. It can take a toll on your personal life, your family, if you have kids, if you own your own business. If you work an hourly job and you have to miss work and not get paid because you have to do a city meeting or do something related to the city, meeting with people at different places to hear about projects that people have or policy changes people might be interested in. It is a lot, and we, as many of you know, we get paid $100 a month and get 2 free meals a month before this meeting from city staff. So what I've seen in my 11 years is that council members typically serve at 1, maybe 2 terms, and then most of them willingly don't run again for whatever reasons, family things or changes in their family. They may be moving or they have some higher aspirations. And so when we're able to get council members that are willing to serve more than that average, Councilmember Schuler with 3 years and Councilmember Foreman with 4, I just like everyone to think about that 7 years of council experience that will leave this dais after tonight. And, that's a challenge given the very difficult and big issues we deal with. One of the big recent issues, when I talk to people, I like to mention getting paid $100 a month to make a $1 billion decision. So, just to put it into perspective for people. And so I'm just always so appreciative of everyone that is willing to sit up here and do this. As Councilmember Foreman mentioned, it's hard to understand what it's like unless you're sitting up here. And we all come from different backgrounds, and most of us don't know each other at all before we end up here serving with each other. And through this, we get to know each other. We get to know more about each other's personal lives and families and why we're doing this, or those types of things. And so you develop a friendship, you develop a closeness that you don't have with anybody else. And for me, it's always difficult seeing colleagues I've served with, specifically when it's been for several years, and especially because of the big things we've had to deal with since 2020 when you came on and then right after you came on. So I appreciate both of you so much for what you've done to help my hometown, our city, move forward. And it's been a pleasure serving with you both. And I will look forward to continue talking to both of you on a regular basis, whether it's on the East Coast or now I have a place I can stay when I visit Pittsburgh. So, and so, but anyway, thank you so much. And that's it.
Councilmember Holman, that was very nice, but Lee Hall got tears when she left. We didn't get tears.
I'm holding them back.
Okay, I know, I kind of heard it, but I mean, Lee's here and she's like, you didn't get tears. I see that look in your eyes.
Our wards boundary each other.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. One thing that did not make my speech that I thought of that I did want to say was before this meeting when I was talking to my daughter, she loves Christmas and she noted that it's 6 months till Christmas. And my last meeting is 6 months till Christmas, and that was sort of a gift. And I do think that's a gift. And then it made me think, Jason, I really hope the Christmas lights go up before Halloween again. Even when people don't like it, I do. So anyway, I will now pass it back to Councilmember Nash for the last time.
Councilmember?
All right. Well, it's been an extraordinary experience serving with both of you. Came in, big shoes to fill, and you're leaving the shoes even bigger. You're leaving the seats better than they were when you got there. Good job. And in 2020, you were the first one, Councilmember Foreman, that actually reached out and talked to me after I got appointed, because nobody knew who I was. And so that was, I could always look to you to see how I should be feeling about a situation. If something is blown out of proportion out on the internet or wherever, if the dais is full, or the chambers are full, you always knew what was going on in the background. And you always handled it with, just poise and grace. And, well, Councilmember Schuler, I could always count on you to be actually looking at the details of all the issues that came in front of us and know the ordinances and sit and ask all the smart-sounding questions so that we all look smarter by sitting next to you. And, it's going to be difficult to have to teach two more how to do this. Go through the growing pains, maybe in 18 months, then they'll have their sea legs and they'll know what they're doing. But thank you for your service to the city and for the professionalism that you've both shown and for the friendship that I've gotten out of it.
Councilmember?
Yes. Good evening, Ward 4 and City of Norman. First, I would like to thank city staff and the Norman Juneteenth Committee members for an excellent Juneteenth. Just to reiterate what Stephen said, Reeves Park was full, the food truck lines were long, people danced into the night, and I didn't think I would make it to fireworks, but I did, and they were definitely popping. Thank you for doing the unseen and seen labor to make that event a success and in making Norman a more inclusive community. Last, I would like to thank Councilmember Foreman and Councilmember Schuler for their service. Councilmember Schuler, I want to thank you for all the hours you have poured into working on council, especially on the items that were beneficial to both our wards, like amending the carport ordinance. I can name numerous other examples of us or other configurations of us working on priorities that we really wanted to see happen. Your work on oversight also helped educate and inform difficult discussions on homelessness and mental health. Oversight is not all a review of ordinances or discussion on new ones. There's some heavy lifting in that. Councilmember Foreman, I have appreciated your creative thinking. For example, the homeless shelter on Gray was your suggestion. I think we can all agree it was a choice made out of necessity, and you were willing to seriously consider it. And because of our work together, we were able to provide a location for 50 souls to seek resources, find a safe place to sleep, and we should all be a little bit happy in some small way we facilitated some of the luckier unhoused people in finding housing through this location. I've watched you finish up your last degree while raising your daughter and still find time and energy to go run races. It's been inspiring to watch you tackle it all. I'm sorry to see you both go, and all the best to you both.
Councilmember?
Good evening, Ward 3 and Norman, Oklahoma. I just have one announcement to make, and I will make it quick because I'm not sure that I can say any more than what everyone else has said. So to you, Councilmember Lauren Schuler, and to you, Councilmember Elizabeth Foreman, thank you both very much. I appreciate everything that you have helped me come into this role. I appreciate you all. And I wish you all the best of luck, and I know that you both will do very well. Thank you all for being here.
Councilmember Schuler? Do you have anything?
Sure, I won't say more than I've already said. I just want to say what an honor it has been to serve with you, Councilmember Foreman, and as well as the other ladies that are on this council. I think that we're going to have a very different makeup in 2 weeks, or I guess a week from now. You will see 2 less of us, and I think that having as many women on council as we've had for the last several years has been a real benefit to Norman. I think we've been able to help change some of the conversations with our lived and life experience. And so it's going to be, I think it's going to be different. And I have been really honored to be able to serve with as many women as I have. And I think that it's really important for us showcasing what women can do and in these leadership positions, especially as, Councilmember Foreman's daughter is, watching us. And I think that's been a really important thing in her life. And, on the precipice of having 2 daughters, I think I'll be able to share with them what this has meant to me. And yeah, I've really valued our time together. Thanks.
Well, on behalf of my 2 daughters, I know that y'all have been amazing role models and great people for them to look up to. And if you'd like to see what everybody up here has worked so hard for, our 2023 annual report is out. So this is everything Norman has accomplished in the last year, and especially these 2 ladies. Thank you so much for all your work and dedication to make all these projects and come true and make Norman a better place. And last thing I have is we won't be here we won't see you before the 4th. So happy birthday, America, and happy 4th of July, y'all. So.
Councilmember Foreman and Councilmember Schuler, I thank you very much for your service, and I appreciate your camaraderie and the work that you've put into all this, and wish you the best in the future. Hope it works well for you. Next item is the consent docket. This item is placed on the agenda so that City Council, by unanimous consent, can designate those routine agenda items that they wish to be approved or acknowledged by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet with the approval of all council members, then that item will be heard in regular order. Staff recommends that items 5 through 27 be placed on the consent docket. I need a motion to place items 5 through 27 on the consent docket.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Motion on the floor is to place items 5 through 27 on the consent docket. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to place items 5 through 27 on the consent docket passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent docket. I have a motion and second. Are there any comments from council regarding any item on the consent docket? Hearing none. The motion on the floor is to approve the consent docket. You may cast your votes.
All votes have been, docket has approved unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Item number 28, an ordinance amending the planned unit development established in Ordinance 02122-10 to amend the site plan and PUD narrative for property located at 3766 East Rock. There already is a motion on the floor from the May 28th council meeting to adopt the ordinance on second reading, section by section. Do I need to adopt it again and bring it back up? Okay. Is Mr. Arce here? There he is, okay. Mr. Arce has been provided a revised site plan and PUD narrative that was submitted to staff today. And I think these changes should go back to the Planning Commission for their input, and I will also give you time, wherever you are, to apply for a revised variance in the driveway. I'm making a motion to that effect. Do I have a second? Second. Are there any questions from council regarding this motion? Hearing none. Members of the public to speak on the motion. Remarks should be limited to the motion on the floor only, which is to send the application back to Planning Commission for their input. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? 28, sir. Oh, point of order. I'm sorry. No, sir, that would be for the Planning Commission to hear what we would be talking about is not sending it back to Planning Commission. Thank you, sir.
Ellis, 633 Reed Avenue, Ward 4. I want to speak in favor of this motion because it seems clear that the applicant hasn't been, paying attention to and/or meeting the requirements that city staff has been looking at. And the staff work here, I think, is to be commended. I mean, there's a lot of careful attention to detail, and that's precisely the sort of thing that I think we want to encourage in Norman. Not necessarily just to say no, but to give them an opportunity to actually put their cards on the table and have a community discussion about this kind of stuff, which I think is exactly right. I hope the person who just had a point of order gets the opportunity to talk on the merits of the case, because I do think it's important for there to be public input and response from the people who are handling this from the side of the city when there are concerns from the citizens about policy proposals that are before the city council. I think that's the kind of dialogue that we need. So not necessarily saying no, but having a public discussion about this sort of stuff is, I think, the path forward for Norman. Thanks.
Thanks, sir.
Mike Fuller, 3735 East Robinson. The people on the petition that I turned in opposes y'all sending it back to Planning Commission because of all the stuff that has been done. And if y'all approve his, then I got another neighbor that's wanting to go to commercial property.
Thank you, sir.
Russell Davis, we own property to the north of that proposed change, and I'm against the property being approved, sending it back to Planning Commission so it can be filled with. Being approved for any change because of the location, that particular property sits at the bottom of two hills on Robinson Street. There's also a city easement there for your 48-inch water line from Thunderbird. If my eyeball is correct, there's a building sitting on top of that easement, and if there is a need to repair that water line, that area will be full of water, and you'll have to move the building to fix it. On top of that, the T intersection there that goes into a residential neighborhood will become very congested with people trying to go to this property, conduct business, which will increase the wear and tear on the street, which in the 20-plus years we've owned the property, the city has not resurfaced that. And for certain streets out in that part of Norman, instead of taking out of the general maintenance fund to resurface things, for some streets, the city assesses the property owners adjacent to that street to make those repairs. Increasing the traffic on that street is only going to increase the wear and tear, which will hasten the need to expend money, either the city's money or the residents' money, to take care of that. And that will be an expensive proposition, however it's funded, whether it's the residents funding it directly or the city funding it out of the maintenance funds. So I'm opposed to changes to that property zoning and variances to allow this to happen, because it's going to be very commercial with all the different enterprises on that property that are under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No more signed up?
If you want to speak, you just need to come forward. This was a motion that wasn't on the sign-up sheet, so anyone in the audience that wants to speak to it, this is your opportunity.
I'm not sure whichever way this is going to go, but plant a garden, plant some fruit trees. It'll help.
All right. Any final comments from council? Yes, sir.
Hey, so, I went to this, take a look around, see what it was that he's requesting, what the issues were, at least what the concerns were that staff had for, kind of get an idea of what, what this request really entailed, what kind of intensity of use it could support, that he could expect. And, on the staff report, there's a number of things that sounded a lot worse than they actually are when you go out there and look at the property. One being the distance of the drive to the crest of the hill. Traffic coming over that hill, you can see vehicles coming out of that drive at least 500 feet away, and that was just, just kind of a rough minimum. You can definitely see it from further out. Now, the speed limit on that road is 50 miles per hour. 50 miles per hour, you've got a stopping distance, about 200 feet or so. It might be 60 miles per hour, but either way, that's with the reaction time and everything. You can see the drives and the approaches long before you actually arrive to them. So that's not really a problem that we see in other places where you have a steep hill that's crested and where the drives are blind once you get over the top. Now, when the applicant, I spoke with him back in 2021 when he very first wanted to apply to these. And, just so you guys are aware of what we're working with, we're used to dealing with applications and requests from developers with huge budgets that hire big expensive attorneys and architects and planners to put together a PUD request that's exactly what we expect it to be, because it's they've done it 100 times already. This is just a regular guy that's going through the process trying to figure out. I don't think he'd ever heard of a PUD or even heard of the Planning Commission until 2 weeks before he gave me a call and found out that, oh no, I have to actually do all these things to get permission from the city. And what looks like it might be complacency on the applicant's part with the requests and maybe the drawings changing a bit, it's simply because he's not as familiar as we're used to seeing applicants. And this is just a regular Joe wanting to make the highest and best use of his property, expanding and exploring a business alternative that's a far cry from what he used to do, which is a network engineer. But during the lockdown, during COVID, he found he loved working on small engines, small motors, and okay, that's what he likes doing. He thinks he can make a living at it. Pursue it. When I went out there and looked at the property, one of the he had a drive that went straight to Bryant, and this is one of the parts that was changed. If you were a developer building a neighborhood that you'd expect a high volume of traffic, that connection to Bryant would make a lot of sense. At that point, you'd have cars coming and going at all hours of the day as people go to work, come back from work, go to school, and all that stuff that the people do. This is just one guy and his small business. His small business that has 8 spots, 8 parking spots to fill with the work that he's got going and customers as they come in. That road only has 1,100 vehicles, average vehicle per day. And if he were getting 100 vehicles per day coming in and going out, that kind of business, I don't think he'd live where he's living anymore. He'd buy a mansion on the west side. But, the intensity is not going to be there to really require that connection straight across from Bryant. Now, one of the concerns, of course, is that with the drive to the east, if you have two vehicles, one coming south, one going north, turning left can be kind of a chaotic mess. But these roads are far enough apart that that's not actually going to be much of an issue. It's not like it would be on, say, Classen where Slim Chickens is, and across the street you've got an apartment complex, maybe 25 feet staggered, you got the two entrances. That gets complicated when you're trying to turn left, but this one's far enough that it's not. And so that connection to Bryant, you know, it actually kind of turned out that the best use, or at least the simplest solution here that works a lot better and is something that's within his budget, because I don't think he understood how expensive it's going to be to level out his whole front yard and lay a road going out to Bryant. But the configuration that he has, and that's what's on this most recent version, is just, it's basically what he has now, going back to we're not going to change it. The only difference, though, is that the one to the west, residential use only, the one to the east would be the use of for his business. If you have a trailer coming in, that's going to be furthest away from that crest. And you know, so that kind of light use. Now, another problem that some of the neighbors had were aesthetics, being the visual eyesore. It also turns out that if you were to make that connection to Bryant, you'd be leveling out this huge berm out in front of his property that actually obscures most of his property from view from that neighborhood to the north. I don't think they realize that what they're asking, or at least this demand here, would give them a much better view of the very thing that they don't want to view. And so with that berm in place, you know, then you could do the landscaping, plant stuff on it, make it visually appealing. And if you did nothing with it, it would still obscure the view, you know, better than any privacy fence would. And then the shop that he's planning on putting there, you know, also from the road, looking at the property as it physically presents itself, having the shop there that he's planning isn't going to be any more of an eyesore than a house. Yeah, in fact, all along the road, you see houses, especially to the north with Bryant. This shop's not going to be much different. It's going to be on the south side, only it's going to, you know, it's going to be new. People don't like new, and that's, you know, kind of understandable. Now, there's not anything in the narrative on the PUD that's requesting any kind of noise variance, so he's still going to be restricted to the noise ordinances that the city has in place. Any kind of lighting is going to be inward facing. That's not going to be creating any kind of issue. And so making this go all the way back to the Planning Commission, it would be erring on the side of caution, but at the same time, it's not, in this particular case, he's not really making any kind of huge modification to it. He's just basically hitting reset on it because, you know, his background being a network engineer, he looks through the regulations and the forms and takes it all way too literally. And you know, on the applicant's side, he's thinking, well, I might as well draw it in and just not need it rather than put specifically what it is that I need. It's a whole different monster when you're not used to this world. And so I'm not going to be able to, I'm not going to support the postponement. I think this is, the narrative is, you know, virtually unchanged. I think the only modification was to the uses permitted on site, vehicle sales. That was already on there. We had updated to put vehicle sales and rental, because he didn't realize that short-term rental meant for like dwellings, like Airbnbs. That additional use isn't going to be any more impactful than if you were just doing sales and somebody were taking a test drive. So, yeah, in my opinion, I don't think that this is significant enough change or kind of thing that's going to really need to go back to the planning commission. Plus, the worst, the worst thing that happens to the planning commission, it goes back to it. They come back with another rejection. The last request was rejected too. A lot of it for these concerns of the safety, the aesthetics, the concerns of the neighbors. But I think that we should just vote on it tonight, and I think it should be approved based on just what I saw. The business that I saw he was engaging with is not something that's going to really create the problems that people are really worried and concerned about. Like I say, just a guy trying to have a business on his property, he's free to do that. And we've got the protections in place for the neighbors and the narrative that they know he's not going to exceed that, the parking spaces, so he's not going to expand beyond that fundamental limitation on his business. So that's my opinion on it, and hopefully others will agree that we can just go ahead and vote on it tonight.
Thank you. I would ask staff, maybe Jane, is what's in front of us right now significantly different in the eyes of the staff than what the Planning Commission voted down a few months ago?
Councilmember Holman, just want to make sure that we're clear. This is what you're looking at?
Yes.
Everybody see that? There's, excuse me, there's not a huge difference in the sense of what was approved at Planning Commission. I mean, it still shows the offices or the barns, and this has eliminated some parking that was approved by Planning Commission, the new one that you see. And of course, there's the two drives that are, as Councilmember Nash referred to, he's asking for the two new drives. And I guess I would want to be very clear that if the new site plan that he'd submitted, that the applicant submitted today is approved, that he would be required to complete those two drives, those two approaches that go over those raw water lines that are there. And one of the things that I expressed to the applicant in an email is that at City Council, the last time he was here, he had said that to construct that drive, it would be approximately $50,000. That's an estimate, I'm sure, from what he has. But if we're asking for approval of two drives, I don't know where the applicant is going to fund that, because he specifically said it was expensive to do one.
Have the code issues that were mentioned at the last meeting, have those been addressed?
No, the applicant does have applications in. They are not complete applications. There's still some outstanding issues, but neither one of those could be issued because we're still in this pending stage for getting the zoning approved. He did go ahead and construct the building. I don't know how he's using it, if he is using it at all, but he did go ahead and finish and put the walls up after the stop work order was placed.
And when was that? If you know if
I believe it was placed, March 21st. Yeah, March 21st.
Thank you. Those circumstances, I would just say, do give me some concern about the proposal. I mean, if there was an order issued by staff and work proceeded anyway, I think that's where some of the concern from the neighbors comes from about if this gets approved, what's going to be actually done? Is it going to comply with stuff? And if it's different than what Planning Commission seems to make sense, that it would go back to them. But I definitely understand the points that Councilmember Nash is making as well. So I appreciate the information about that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So to me, listening to all of this, it's really a procedural issue, and the way that we go about the process of approving development or not approving development. I think that in the past, I have been, hopeful that we could push things back to Planning Commission when they change. I mean, it was submitted today. We wouldn't have seen this in our packet. I got the new PUD and the new site plan here on the dais. So how can we make a really robust decision on what we're getting whenever, typically the agenda comes out on Friday, and we would have several days and then we could ask questions of staff. We didn't have that opportunity. I think that it's really important in the development process that Planning Commission does get to see and ask questions. And I think that they asked really quality questions the first time around. And I'd like to see us use this process more, frankly, to send things back to Planning Commission when they need to be reworked. I think it's part of allowing people to work through the process. I appreciate that this is a difficult task as a single residential individual. But I would also say that, in my opinion, based on the conversations that we had a month ago about this project, that staff has really bent over backwards to provide information, to provide clarity, to really help the applicant kind of through the things that they needed to do to get to the point of potentially an approval. And the reason that we postponed it a month ago was to work through that process. And what I'm hearing is that didn't happen. Like, yes, there are partial applications that are kind of submitted, and there's been like some things, but to kind of wait to the last minute to get a new site plan is a little frustrating, to say the least. And so I think that, to me, it's not necessarily, we can't discuss the merits of the site change and all the things that Councilmember Nash are bringing up. I think that's an important conversation that we have to have, but I also think that it would be really important for Planning Commission to see this revised thing, to have the new information that Planning Department and Transportation and all of these things are saying about this different site plan before it comes back to council. And, then we have a larger discussion about what it looks like. So to me, it makes sense procedurally in the process that we have set up for development and, protecting. I understand that is frustrating to the neighbors because this puts you in a prolonged state of unease of what is going to move forward. But we have to balance this idea of what is good for residents and also what is good for, the potential applicant as well. And so I think sending it back to Planning Commission is allowing us to continue to work through that process, and will also give the neighbors more time to protest and provide information and clarity on what is happening to them based on this adjacent property, and to be able to show up at Planning Commission again, and then as well at council to say, continuing to say why this isn't good to them. So to me, it's process, and I think that we should send it back just based on all of the timeline of events that have come forward.
Yes, I had a question for Public Works. I wanted to get your thoughts on the site plan that we have and the information regarding traffic and street use. Were you able to see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what do you think?
Okay, Scott Sturts, Interim Director of Public Works. We got this again today, as discussed earlier, and upon immediately looking at it, this does not meet the variance requirements that would be necessary for us to grant this variance requirement. The reasons for that are the separations between the driveways. That's section 4008 of our engineering design criteria, which is accepted by council and adopted by council. We use very scientific methods to figure that out, transportation engineering. I'm not a transportation engineer. If we want to discuss transportation engineering, we'd get an expert up here because that's not my field of expertise. But the problem is that the distance between those two driveways. And by keeping that shared driveway, that becomes two driveways on one property. The reason that we could overlook the fact that there wasn't the distance between the driveways before is they were serving separate properties. We can't tell a property owner, we're not going to grant you access to your own property. And you see that all over town. When you look around, you drive around Norman, you see driveways that are very close. Well, they're on opposite sides of a property line many times, especially in newer developments. So that's our major concern here, is the distance between those two driveways. We disagree with placing the driveway all the way to the west, as stated in our staff report. The further west you go, the worse the sightline distance is for traffic. So we think that lining it up with Bryant, we always feel it's the best object and the best objective for us to try to line those up directly across from each other so that that's the safest criteria that we can have. We always do that. We always try to do that. There's times where we just can't. But so that's why we think it needs to stay at the center driveway. And we feel that the joint driveway needs to be closed off and serving the property to the east, as was in the original site plan. They submitted a variance. We rejected the variance based upon all the facts that we've got within our staff report and that I've just given. He came back, he said, yes, I will do this so that I can get through the process, and then this came in today. So again, we couldn't support a variance on the site plan that came through today based upon that distance between the drives and also not lining up properly.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
My next question is for City Attorney Walker. Is there a process for pushing it back to planning?
Yes, for PUDs specifically, the zoning ordinance says council may grant, deny, defer for requested changes or information, or return the application to the Planning Commission for further study.
Would we just make a motion to do that?
That's the motion on the
Okay,
floor.
sorry, my bad. Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd share with a lot of what already been said tonight. The only thing I'll add is that in Planning Commission, this proposal actually failed unanimously by 7 votes. So it was a 0-7 vote, and so I think it is absolutely appropriate to send it back to Planning Commission.
Motion on the floor is to send the ordinance back to the planning commission for their input on the changes. Councilman, you may cast your vote.
All votes have been to send the item back to Planning Commission. Passes by a vote of 8-1. Voting against, Councilmember Nash.
Thank you, ma'am. And I apologize for the inconvenience that that's going to cause you in doing this, but what we're making sure of is that we get the exact right people looking at the right stuff at the right time and put your input into the right group of people viewing the plans. So, sorry it's going to take you longer. Okay. Item number 29. A resolution amending the Norman 2025 Land Use and Transportation Plan to remove property located east of 36th Avenue Northwest, north of West Tecumseh Road, and west of I-35 from office designation, placing it in commercial designation. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the resolution.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Is there a representative of the applicant here? Mr. Gunnar Joyce.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Council members, Gunnar Joyce on behalf of the applicant. I'll click through the last item there. On behalf of the applicant, Carroll Farms LLC, and Terry Haynes is here as well, civil engineer of the project with SMC. This is really an update of a preliminary plat. And before I get too deep in here, the specific item right now is a 2025 amendment. The next two are with it as well, so preliminary plat and a PUD. I'll talk about all three and move pretty quick here. The first one is the 2025 request. You can see that on the right side of the screen. It's solely for 3 acres of this overall development, which is basically 44.6 acres. As you see on the 2025, all the uses that are requested in the PUD are already 2025 appropriately. We are asking for commercial allowances along 36th Avenue there, so that's the 2025 request. That orange piece that you would see would become red like the rest of the commercial areas. Excuse me. And then the zoning is currently PUD, and when I take you through the site plan, you'll see some minor changes to the PUD that is really an update to kind of a more modern design. And then the last one is the preliminary plat, which is being updated because currently expired. So here is the site plan. It's an update to the existing PUD. The proposal is really a horizontal mixed use throughout the property with multifamily, a senior living at the far north around the detention pond, and then the rest is commercial and office throughout. 42 townhome units are proposed just south of that detention pond. And here you can see really the change from the original design that was first 1999, then updated in 2006, and lastly updated in 2014. And so we're back now, and you can really see two things that are noticeable. One, it's substantially greener, and I know obviously there's not green on the original one, but the green that you can see now is a reduction of parking. And so that is a direct result of the fact that you all have removed parking minimums. So you can see I've highlighted two areas there that used to be the old-fashioned big box stores, massive parking lots, and the new design shows where there was one building, now multiple buildings, smaller parking lots, and much more green space. And that is really kind of the summary of the change here on the preliminary plat and the zoning, is that we are now coming with a more modern approach. Development is really kind of kicking off and imminent. We've got some transactions that are pending. Lots are for sale, but in order to do that, the preliminary plat has to be updated. When you update a preliminary plat, you got to also update the zoning, and so that's why all three of these are here tonight. We have no protest. This is the preliminary plat. It's 30 total lots, and this is the site plan as it's laid out. And I've called out some adjacencies that if you'd like, we can talk about in more detail, but you are familiar with the area because we've brought the Storage Oklahoma zoning over there on the left recently. Norman Regional we've done recently, in Ruby Grant Park up there on the north. And so that's the summary. No protest. Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councilmember Holman?
So you mentioned that this site plan it does reflect the lack of parking requirements, right? There is still quite a lot of parking, it looks like. That would encourage to take some more closer look at. When you mention horizontal mixed use, I mean, the whole city is horizontal mixed use. It's definitely not what I think of as mixed use at all. I think of a single building that has multiple uses in it. Will this entire thing be just one-story strip mall type stuff, or will it be a mix of apartments, office, commercial space, depending on which buildings and all that?
Yeah, it has the ability to go much higher in height. There's no limitation on the commercial, so that'll be market-driven. The multifamily, townhome, and senior living could go up to 5 stories.
And that is, I see one of those is on the kind of right by the pond area there.
Yeah,
That's the senior
That's right.
village or so, and where would the multifamily?
It is the lot just south of the detention pond. You can kind of see the smaller, let me click out of that one, the smaller townhome boxes just south of the detention pond.
Okay, so that, and then next to the detention pond, you said is the senior? in the
That's right.
Corner up there, okay. And so there's not any actual apartment buildings or anything? This is all commercial potentially?
Everything in the center area there.
Okay. And we'd probably be thinking, I don't know, other parts of that area of town where it's doctor's offices and the buildings look like houses in the neighborhood. Is that kind of the same idea?
Yeah, so the entire area was originally in the hospital PUD, and the covenants out there encompassed all of it originally. So it's kind of over time always been contemplated for medical offices and support of commercial services. this developer still controls a lot of those covenants, especially in this area. So they've got architectural control and privately will control kind of the look and feel of the actual development.
If there were a demand or a project came up to build apartments or buildings that have commercial on the bottom with apartments above it, is that something that would be allowable on this property? Depending on how it may develop out.
I know it is not the current plan.
Just seems like a good spot for high density, sandwiched in between all that stuff and on that side of the street and everything, so. Just something I'd like to, clarify if it would be allowed, whether it actually develops that way or not, I know is not predicted, but.
So right now, there's not any commercial multifamily crossover, and that's aligns with one, the existing PUD, and then the 2025 plan. And so that's a good image to show all the red is commercial and solely commercial, and then the brown area there is multifamily, solely multifamily.
Okay. And then the last thing really is, well, one, stormwater, that detention pond, will that be standing? It's not going to be or it's going to retain the water in it, is that what I understand?
I believe it is, and we'll call Terry, talk more detail. Thank you.
Terry Haynes, SMC Consulting Engineers, 815 West Main, Oklahoma City. Councilman Holman, could you repeat your question for me, please?
The stormwater on the site, will it be managed by that large water feature pond, retention pond? And will that pond be holding water, or will it be dry most of the time?
No, it is a wet detention pond, retention, some call it retention, but it was designed originally with the original preliminary plat and PUD for detention for this entire area. This is also on the upper reach of the stormwater quality protection zone. And so we do have a little piece on this property that has a water protection area baked into the plat.
Okay. And then appreciate that answer. The last one I had is connection from this property to the existing commercial that fronts Tecumseh. I see cul-de-sacs and dead ends. Is there a connection at all between the two, or as in pedestrian connection? Or do people have to walk all the way around, or?
There's
how
not
would that
direct connections between the two. That would really be, it's a private matter between the property owners, whether they would allow a direct connection, but you're correct. It would be walk around. There is a sidewalk along Journey Parkway that would be extended north. There's also the legacy sidewalk along 36th Avenue.
Is it a masonry wall in between the existing commercial? and
There
the-
is not,
It'd
no, sir.
just be a fence, or maybe
Yeah.
nothing. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Peacock? Great. Councilmember Schuler?
Yes. I don't know if you said this, Gunnar, how many more lots? Like, what is the increase in density from the previous plat to this one? Just curious.
So in those two areas, and those are the main increases in density there, we have taken, and I'm going to start with the bottom left corner, which was proposed originally as a large gas station. Now that one has become 5 lots. And then the 2 commercial lots that are highlighted north side of that road, one became 3 lots, and then another one became 2 lots.
Okay. I know that we've heard at Planning Commission, some of our commissioners, and I agree with this too, having, smaller locations for businesses to come in promotes potentially, small businesses, local businesses. So I like seeing those commercial spaces split up into smaller lots and units, and it's a better entry point, price point for people. So that might encourage, more, I guess, local and smaller businesses to come in. So I appreciate that. There was also a question asked at Planning Commission about some of the allowable uses that are listed on the PUD that are currently restricted by the covenants. And I think this is in relation to like All Saints, being adjacent, and I think specifically around like alcohol, beer, wine, liquor kind of things. Can you explain again for us here what the process would be for the property owners to change those covenants, and why is it listed in the allowable uses when it's currently not allowed?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting with the process to change, I actually gave more of a residential covenant change answer at Planning Commission. So I'll revise it a little bit, because the fact that we're commercial here really means that the developer, as long as they are retaining an interest, really controls throughout. And everyone, when those tenants come in, whether they buy a lot or they rent a lot, recognizes that the landlord, if they're the tenant, or the developer, will retain the ability to amend the covenants if needed. Specifically to All Saints, they came to pre-development and talked with the ownership group and have had a really good relationship for many, many years. And the ownership group talked to them about the existing covenants and their vision for this plan. All of those noxious uses is what we call them when we write those covenants. You know, the adult stores, the liquor stores, the marijuana stores are usually stricken at the beginning stages of a commercial development. They are here as well, because they always, the developer envisions they want to be able to get the biggest bang for their buck when they sell off lots, and many of the other commercial tenants that they are trying to attract to the area also don't want to be around those things, and so that's why they're prohibited now. The reason why we keep the allowable uses in, and we talked about this at Planning Commission, is we've had quite a bit of PUDs in the past where circumstances change 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and an applicant has to come back to change maybe one word or add liquor store when the person or the entity that's coming in is a liquor store that is very high end, or is maybe a sub piece of a business that's like a restaurant, but they sell something. What we really saw this in is when marijuana became legalized, we had to come back and just change one lines to existing PUDs in places where everyone recognized this was a desirable use and everybody was on board. So that's why we like to try and keep it, because it's harder to amend private covenants than it is the zoning, even though obviously, as you guys are all aware, it's not easy to amend zoning. But private covenants, they're not tied to what you guys are, which is rational basis reasoning, right? You have to have a reason to deny it. You have to have a safety, welfare, some reason to why you think this is not a good decision. Privately, they're not subject to that. So it's much harder to get private covenants listed than it is at a zoning level.
Okay, so as I appreciate the robust explanation. So as I'm understanding it, though, the developer will probably retain enough stake in this property to change the covenants by themselves by percentage. So are the covenants really restrictive? And so allowing these allowable uses in here is basically saying this is the intent of the developer moving forward, and they're going to retain the right to change all of this because they're going to be the owners of the property, or a majority of the properties. So to me, like, they're the same based on that explanation. And we've had multiple, we always have conversations about allowable uses, and I understand that developers want to, cast that net really wide and be able to, add whatever, because we don't know what the market is going to be. But the point in writing your own zoning is to protect the surrounding properties, to understand exactly what is allowable. And, there are covenants, but to me, I'm like, that I'm going to throw that out the window because they're going to own everything for the majority of it. And so, I think that's going to be fairly easy for them to. And I think that I understand changing one word of a code and going through the process and all of that kind of stuff. But that's the point. The point is to protect the public and to give them, and that they know exactly what they are getting with this. So that is my sticking point at this point, is what's listed in those allowable uses, and does the current covenants actually restrict these allowable uses?
If I could, people that brought it up, right, the school there, had this specific conversation with the ownership group and had the opportunity to file a protest, had the opportunity to complain to the commission, and tonight, they are very comfortable with this ownership group, with their vision for the development. The owner is proud that there is no protest here. Certainly hear you. But also, they're protected through state statutes, right? So you can't put uses like that in close proximity to them anyway, which is another above and beyond measure that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah,
But
do you
I
know
understand.
what is the distance?
Usually it's 1,000 feet. That's going to vary on, marijuana dispensary, grow, things like that. But typically they're 1,000-foot buffers.
Okay, so from the school, what would be allowable to put those in? Like, what is 1,000 feet? Can you?
Can't off the top of my head. Yeah.
Anybody? I mean, staff, the site plan, like what is 1,000 feet from the school on this current site plan?
It's not an eighth of a mile.
Well, I just want to clarify.
I'm gonna need a magnifying glass, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's
That's what I
hard.
was trying to look and see. Gunnar, do you know what your dimensions are out there? I mean, honestly, I can't tell. Terry, do you know?
No.
It is.
N-
Yeah.
no,
Right.
It'll be, that's gotta be a half, because if this is Tecumseh, we're going up to the school, which hits the edge of Ruby Grant, right? Or am I still too short? So, they would not be, no.
So, sorry, no, we can only hear from
Yes.
staff or somebody at the podium. I apologize. It just gets confusing and that's
you're fine.
the rules. So what are you saying?
So
Ms.
your
Hudson?
question is the distance from the school to any one of these,
Correct, commercial properties.
would that be 1,000 feet? I would say no.
Okay, so wouldn't there potentially be prohibited just based on the state statute?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Just
Any other questions from council? All right, this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on this item. Remarks should be directed to council only. Once public comments have concluded, council may choose to answer your questions. Madam Clerk, is anybody signed up?
We have Stephen Ellis.
Steve Ellis, Ward 4. After hearing the discussion on this one, it seems like maybe this needs to go back to Planning Commission too, because it looks as though there's some considerations that haven't been fully taken into account, the ones raised by Council Member Schluter. I do, however, want to congratulate the applicant because it looks like they're, doing some entrepreneurial things in order to meet housing needs in the city of Norman, and you guys aren't even having to pay for it, which is a really good thing, right? So, let's see if we can make this work, but let's make sure that we handle all the particular problems first. So maybe we need a motion to get this one back before Planning Commission too. Thanks.
Cindy Rogers.
Cindy Rogers, still Ward 4. I do appreciate the extra green space, although horizontal mixed use just seems like kitty plate mixed use to me. And I would hope we could do better than that with the real mixing of things, not my land, not my development. I guess I do have concerns about just sort of allowing things by right. That's why you do a PUD, so I guess I'm gonna echo Councilmember Schuler's concerns there. Thank you.
Evan Dunn.
Oh, Evan Dunn, 1400 Garfield Avenue. I don't like the design. This is why I think we need to have some type of food foresting ordinance that restricts and makes it necessary for developers to integrate that into their planning. There's only so much oil. If we care about the future, we've got to be as conservationist as possible, period.
Comments from council regarding this? Hearing none. The motion on the floor is to adopt the resolution. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Item number 30, an ordinance rezoning property located at east of 36th Avenue Northwest, north of West Tecumseh Road, and west of I-35 from PUD, excuse me, from PUD, Planned Unit Development District, and Unit Development District. That doesn't make sense. A different configure, okay. From Planned Unit Development District to Planned Unit Development District.
They're just changing the PUD.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
So moved.
A motion is second. Is there a representative of the applicant here? It's a continuation of this. We're still, I got you. I'm sorry, I'm slow. Go ahead, Gunnar. Is there anything more that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I don't have anything further to add.
Okay. Is there anything from council that council wants to say? Councilman?
Actually, wait until after public comment.
Okay. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on this item. Madam,
Margaret Blevins. Stephen Ellis. He's coming in.
Steve Ellis, Ward 4. I want to apologize to the council member Schuler. I used one of my kids' favorite teacher's name instead, so I'm an idiot, sorry.
Cindy Rogers. Evan Dunn. Okay, that's all, Mayor.
Councilmember Schuler?
So just understanding kind of where my votes are coming from here. The first item was on the land use, which is different. My concerns were with the PUD, which is this item. So I'm going to vote no based on the conversation that we had about covenants and allowable uses. And then the third item, 31, is about waiver and kind of easement stuff. So that will be fine. So just kind of understanding why I'm voting yes on some things and why I'm voting no on others.
On the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you may cast your vote.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon second reading passes by a vote of 7-2. Voting against, Councilmember Holman and Councilmember Schuler.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
So moved.
Motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your vote.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon final reading passes by a vote of 8-1. Voting against, Councilmember Schuler.
Thank you, ma'am. Item number 31, preliminary plat for Carroll Farm Addition, a planned unit development generally located at the northeast corner of the intersection of 36th Avenue Northwest and West Tecumseh Road. I'll entertain a motion to approve or reject the preliminary plat.
Motion to approve.
I have motion and second. This is a companion item to the previous two items. Any further comments from council? Madam Clerk, is any further comments from the public?
We have the same three listed, Stephen Ellis, Cindy Rogers, Evan Dunn. Okay.
Okay. Nothing more from council. The motion on the floor is to approve the preliminary plat. Council members, you may cast your vote.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to approve the preliminary plat passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Item number 32, an ordinance rezoning property located at 716 Sonia Drive from A2 Rural Agricultural District to RM6 Medium Density Apartment District. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion second is a representative of the applicant here to make a presentation.
Name's Dagan Flowers, Ward 4 since 2015. I worked on the college campus for a nonprofit for about 14 years, and while me and my wife worked at OU, we grew to love college students, and while we were there, we started acquiring some rental property that we typically would rent out to college students. So in those seasons, those two entities kind of merged, and we grew in our love for real estate as well as college students, and over the past couple of years, rental prices have skyrocketed, especially for college students, in an astronomical level. So when you look at what students were paying a few years ago, $700, $800 a bedroom around North Campus, those same bedrooms are $1,200, $1,300 a bedroom. Now, I have a property in that area, and I'm not complaining, but me and my wife mainly see it as an opportunity for there needs to be a little bit more viable options with the type of product that students would want to live in at a more affordable rate. And so when the Potts Farm came for sale, I think it was last fall, when the old Potts Farm came for sale last fall, me and my wife saw it as an opportunity to possibly add another level of housing to Norman that could compete with some of those higher priced bedroom prices that college students have to pay for, but at a more pre-pandemic price. So this housing development that we're working on, this is the above screenshot. It's a 48 unit complex with 48 parking spots, taking this A2 ag land into usable apartment housing. Now, the city code actually only requires us to put 1.3 parking spots per unit on the property, but seeing as there's a strong possibility that every unit could be filled with a college student just based on the location, we know that it'd be very needed to have a parking spot for every bedroom there because there's no other places to park. They'd have to go all the way over to Lloyd Noble, which isn't really a viable living situation. So we had to take up some of the land with 48 parking spots at a minimum. Originally, we actually wanted to build 4 structures on this land, all facing what that Sonia private drive is, and put all the parking in the back, which is very standard for areas close to campus. It looks a lot better when you drive by, when you drive through it, but as we went through the survey, we discovered that that house on the east side of the property is actually right on top of the city easement. It must have been built before there was an easement, and there's actually a city sewer line that goes right through the western third of that property. So you can't actually build any structure on the eastern side of this property. So we had to pivot what we originally wanted to be more of a micro neighborhood feel as you drive into the lot, even with the potential of what might happen to the north property if they ever wanted to sell it. We wanted to make sure that we were building something that could be a micro neighborhood feel from the south to the north. So we had to pivot, and you'll get to see that photo in a little bit as Chris gets to talk about some of the water retention and things like that. But we had to put all the structure on the western or on the eastern side of the property, the western side of the property facing each other. And so that's why it's going to be like that. We wanted to keep with the RM6 zoning, mainly because it's on the city master plan. That's what the city has planned this land to be. And other than the lot to the south, which is owned by OU, And the lot to the north that's owned by the owners that sold us the property that we purchased, everything surrounding the land is RM6. So we wanted to rezone RM6, keeping with that, and we look forward to developing this old farm into usable apartment housing for the city and for the university.
Okay. Councilmember Grant?
Was the applicant finished? That was it? Okay.
That was just the story of the property.
I really appreciate that you all are considering putting in an affordable student housing option. I just have a couple questions about Audra Carr's letter and if you all had worked out some agreements. One of them was erect an 8-foot privacy fence on the north side of the proposed building.
I wasn't in on that conversation, but yes, we want privacy for both people. I wasn't actually sure where we had said that we were going to put the fence. But we
Okay.
definitely want privacy for the upcoming tenants and the current tenants.
She asked for add a no-through street or dead-end sign to the current street sign to reduce the turnaround traffic.
So we're gonna pave that gravel road to be full paved road.
And add a speed limit sign with the minimum speed allowed.
I don't know if we were putting a speed limit sign, but we can
I
put a
can
speed
ask
limit sign.
staff.
There's really nowhere to go. It's just as,
And then it does say the petitioners will be paving Sonia Drive from what is now a private gravel drive, and they requested a paved driveway aprons to the residential driveways, and that Sonia Drive be paved to the end of the property, 20-foot setback.
correct.
Okay. And then there was a request from Planning Commission, if you're one of the property owners, there's a historic pecan tree that's coming down, and I believe Commissioner Byrd asked if you guys would be interested in connecting with the local wood turning class.
At the Norman Technology Center?
I believe
Norman
so.
Moore, yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time I ever heard of it, so. Did that get all worked out? Have you guys contacted them?
We haven't moved forward with anything until this meeting tonight, obviously, because there's a lot of costs.
But you are
Yes,
interested?
absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely interested.
And then, can you talk about the drainage on the site?
Chris?
Good evening, council members. Chris Anderson with SMC Consulting Engineers, 815 West Main, Oklahoma City. The site generally drains from the north to the south. It's pretty flat. I don't know if there was a, sorry, I'm trying to get to, okay. This is a preliminary plat. You see we've designed a detention pond kind of along the west side and then along the south side. And so we are picking up all the drainage before it drains off site. And there's kind of the site plan, kind of preliminary site plan showing the detention pond and the two buildings. So everything will drain to that detention pond.
All right. I guess this question is for staff about those speed limit signs. I'm gonna guess that's the first you're hearing of it.
Kind of caught me off guard with that one. Scott Sturts, Interim Director of Public Works. This is a private road, private drive. We typically do not require speed limit signs on those, but we would support that in this case. You know, we'd probably be thinking to be a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, which is what we would say on all public streets that are of this type of a residential type use. But obviously, it's a private drive. They could put 7 miles an hour if they wanted. They could choose what they would want to be on that since it's a driveway to their property.
Okay. And then one last question for Mr. Flowers, or two. What is the price point for each of these, or will it be stratified, like?
I mean, we're still researching and doing market analysis, but we'd like to come down to pre-pandemic prices of what people were paying on North Campus.
So like $700 or $800 a unit? And then, can you talk about the landscaping? Like, are you putting in trees?
We want to put in trees, but this is as far as we've gotten, as far as our planning, with the cost of putting up plans. And so, but as I was looking at it earlier today, there's a whole row of trees, if you've ever gone down Chautauqua, that go right through the middle, and they go right through each side of the street. So when you're driving down Chautauqua from Highway 9 towards the campus, it looks beautiful. So my thought is that we'd like to plant the trees that continue where they kind of stop right there at the Old Potts Farm, to where the look is seamless as you kind of drive through. And then that would also cover some of the parking, like we want to put as much trees and landscaping around the parking so that it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I was gonna say last time, I believe it was Mr. Jackson I spoke to, I had asked him if,
He's more the builder in all of it.
I'd asked him if he would consider putting trees in the parking lot and letting the water drain into them.
So, yeah, the curbed areas where the parking is going to be putting the trees in there so the water can drain. Obviously, there's a curb that goes around that, so figuring out how to get the water to drain through the curb, I think, will probably be something that he'll have to figure out.
All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Councilmember Holman?
Thank you. I had the same questions regarding the letter from Audra Carr and the requests that were made in that letter, which I support them being included. I had similar questions about the trees and the street trees, so I appreciate you clarifying that partly. The parking, though, so our current requirement doesn't require any parking at all for this. So I wanted to clarify that you were aware that you don't have to have one for every bedroom. I understand that you may want to, and that's in our policy we want you to have as much as you think you need, and we don't want you to be required to have more than you think you need. And so just want to clarify that you were aware of that and that the number you're stating is the number you do think you need.
Yeah, we know that the city code is 1.3 per unit, but if it was filled with college students, say 48 college students, there would be very little parking for all the tenants. So we saw that we needed to have that parking, otherwise we'd have a bigger problem on our hands.
Okay. And then there are two very large sycamore trees where the parking would be. Would you be preserving any of the existing trees on the property?
We wanted to, but we don't see a way that we could actually build a apartment complex that this is zoned for by keeping any of those larger trees.
The parking lot can't be designed around them? The two that I'm talking about are where the parking would be, so.
If you,
They're great at soaking up stormwater runoff is one of the reasons I mentioned that, so.
I think that would probably be a question for Chris and engineering and Pete, but I think we were trying to do everything that we could do to get enough parking so that when people's children's are paying rent to stay, they have a place to park their car.
I definitely.
But
agree.
I would want to see, like, if there was a way to save some of these larger trees, that it kind of worked into the plan.
It's definitely a big amenity. I park my car under a big tree across the street from my house because in the heat that we have, it is extremely helpful to walk out and the car not be, 120 degrees inside. So I view it as an amenity for residents. If there's a way, especially when you have fully grown, mature ones like that are very large, I think it, for me, increases the, if I were looking for a place to live, I'd be more attracted to this place with those trees than without it, just.
It's one of the reasons we were disappointed we couldn't keep our original plans with keeping the properties facing Sonia Drive.
That was my kind of main thing about it too, was when I first saw it was parking facing the street. I was like, why? It should have switched.
There's no other way, yeah.
But I understand the reasoning why why that must be so. But those are things I would want you to consider as you move forward, if this is approved, that I think make the property more attractive if you are able to keep any of them, even if it's some of the ones along the fence line to the west or to the south. Any of them that you can work into it, I think would be beneficial. So I appreciate it.
Councilmember Peacock?
Thank you. So I was also going to ask about street trees. Ms. Hudson, would you mind answering, what is the street tree requirement for the existing zoning on that property? Do you happen to have any idea offhand? Is there a requirement?
Councilor Peacock, are you talking about the landscaping requirements, or are you talking about a separate street tree requirement that?
Landscape requirements.
So it's 1 per 40?
Okay, so there are for this property. So he's asking for a variance on those. Is that the way I understand it? Or is that written into the SPUD at all, or is there a variance?
No, this is straight zoning. This is RM6.
Okay,
And so they will have to follow any of the landscaping requirements for that parking that it's abutting Chautauqua and then down Sonia. But they're also going to put that fence up, like they said, too, so.
okay. I just see, I see the sidewalk, I see the ONG easement, I see an existing fence line, I see a water, there's a lot of stuff there. And so I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of that tree requirement, that there's actually a place on the site plan to put them.
We will review that when we get the building permit in, promise you. But remember, they can also group those trees if there's issues with easements or anything up there, but they will get the required trees that go along the street.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Excuse me. Any other questions from council? All right, this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on this item.
Stephen Ellis? Cindy Rogers? Audra Carr?
Audra Carr, Ward 4. I'm not up here to speak against the zoning change. The applicants have invested a significant amount of money to putting forth their vision, and I'm not standing opposed to that. I am coming up here just to acknowledge a significant part of Norman history. If you were lucky to be born before 1979, then you may have gotten some of our milk. And there are thousands of Norman residents that have beloved memories of the milk and my father, who was the kind of man that you could just say, "Hey, go, John, go put it in the fridge for me," and he would do that. That certainly times gone by. Thank you very much, councilman members, for acknowledging my letter and paying it serious consideration. It is so unfortunate about the trees. I've been out there staring at them for weeks, just saying goodbye. I do know that regarding the zoning, the RM6, I believe the listing is currently on Zillow. I think they're listed for, I believe, $800 a student. So forgive me if that's incorrect, and I'm sure that's something that's variable. Hopefully I'm looking forward to working with the applicant. There will just be there will be things that we'll have to work out with the roadway. Because it is a private agreement. It's based on a deed that's on our property from between family members. And so now that deed is still, that 25-foot easement still stands. That easement, though, is not where the road is. The road is actually south, and so it's more on their property. It's only about 7 feet onto our property currently, but they're wanting to split the road 12 and 12, and so they will be taking another 5 feet of our property plus construction. And so, of course, construction debris and dust and noise and certainly losing more of my yard is a concern that I'm hoping that they will be considerate of. Also, construction schedule, when they, when they're going to be felling those 80-foot trees, when they're going to be tearing the houses down, so I can be aware of when heavy equipment is going to be right across from me, since we do share a road easement, a shared road. So that, I believe that's everything else was covered in my letter, and I do appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Evan Dunn?
1400 Garfield Avenue. I should have been an architect. I should have been a designer. This is representative of the superficial sensibilities that just rule the day. We are going to need as much arable land as possible in the future. What type of a world do you think we're going to live in 20 years? Every year, every day, we're burning 100 million barrels of oil. That's going on and on and on, all over the world. Whenever we're asleep, the world is active. We have an affordable housing crisis, so we need more homes. So we need the developers to be working on these problems. This is, again, why we need a food foresting ordinance. We need something that makes them change their sensibilities. It's our job to do so.
All right. Comments from council? None. Motion on the floor. Oh. You may if you wish.
I'm Mary Francis, Ward 7, and I'm very familiar with the Potts Farm. In the 60s, I rode their horses down into that, through the woods and into that big pasture, and which is now all residential, of course. And it was a lovely and green space, and there is still some lovely green space left. Not much, but, and I'm wondering, when this development is completed, how much green space are we going to have? We do need to keep as much green space as possible. Well, I don't know, the easement, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work. But I encourage the council to think about that problem.
All right. Motion on the floor. Who do I have? Councilmember Holman.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment too and acknowledge the piece of Norman history that this property represents and the Potts family. This is just a piece of the farm which predates Highway 9 and used to cover all the land, all those apartments you see down there on Chautauqua and Highway 9, parts of the university campus down there, the Oliver Wildlife Preserve, that area, and all the way down to what would be Post Oak, actually even further down, what would be Etowah Road in Noble, if you follow it all the way down south, encompasses the Potts Farm currently. If you drive south on Jenkins to where Jenkins dead ends, that's the Potts Farm, and it looks like it's in a completely different world. You would have no idea that a mile up the road is a major university in a city the size of Norman. It really is like something out of a storybook. I wanted to acknowledge as well the Potts family and the significance that this piece of property has played in Norman history. And there are definitely things about this proposal I don't love, but we do desperately need more housing. We need affordable housing, and if you are able to get it done at the rates that were mentioned, every unit we can get will help with the housing supply versus demand. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Grant.
Yes. I'm generally supportive of this, and I hope the applicant will reach out to Audra Carr, and also me. I would love to know the construction schedule and when you'll be taking down the trees. The other request from Commissioner Byrd was the potential before the tree is felled to grab some grafts from it. But anyways, I would just like you to consider that. Thank you.
The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon second reading passes unanimously.
Entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
Motion to adopt.
A motion and second. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been adopt the ordinance upon final reading passes unanimously.
Thank you. Councilmember Peacock, would you relieve me for a while and read 33, please?
Item 34, correct? 33. Oh, sorry. 3 is a preliminary plat for the old dairy farm located at 716 Sonia Drive. This is a continuation of the previous item, so I'll entertain a motion to approve or reject the preliminary plat.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any further comments from council on this item? Seeing none, are there comments regarding this item? Seeing none, are there any final comments? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I did give up. Stephen Ellis, Audra Carr, Cindy Rogers, Evan Dunn. Okay.
Are there any final comments from council? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to approve the preliminary plat. Council members, you may cast your votes. Do I vote here or down there?
Votes have been cast, and the motion to approve the preliminary plat passes unanimously with Mayor Heikela out of the room.
Item 34, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, closure of a 20-foot width right-of-way located adjacent to lots 12, 13, and 14, Block 1, State University. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
Motion to adopt.
Is there a representative for the applicant to make a presentation?
Hello, Libby Smith on behalf of the applicant. So this is a request for 2 tracks of easement or of alleyway closure along 221 Eddington Street. You can see tract A in red is 20 feet wide, and then tract B up on the north is 10 feet wide. And the applicant is requesting to close both of those tracks. Here is a more detailed view of the request. You can see that 20-foot wide alley and the 10-foot wide alley. You can also see up on the north part and on the west part that the alleyway has already been closed by the neighbor. The apartment complex to the west closed that when they were building. And so no matter what, this won't ever be able to be a through street. So this is another aerial where you can see the existing water main running through tract A on the property. The applicant will grant the city an easement at the time of vacation in district court, and so that water main will remain in place. Here's the street view of the property. You can see that neither alleyway has ever been paved or ever used as a public street. Right now, it's just vacant land in that existing duplex. The applicant intends to come back to the city and seek a lot line adjustment after they go through the district court vacation process. And so this is the goal final lot of consolidating all of the lots into one. And so you can see the overlay of the easement tracks over the existing aerial. Staff will support the request once we grant the vacation, or grant the easement during the vacation. All of the existing utilities will remain in place. There haven't been any objections to this closure by other utility companies or by neighbors. And so with that, I'll take any questions.
Councilmember Grant.
Oh, I was just going to wait after public comment.
Any questions from council? Excellent. This is an opportunity for the members of the public to speak on this item. Is there anybody signed up?
Stephen Ellis, Cindy Rogers, Evan Dunn. Okay.
All right. Now you want a final comment? Please.
I'm supportive of this. I went out there and I viewed the property. You know, you really can't do anything with it, and what Mr. McCabe would like to do actually makes the lot, well, when they get all combined into one, makes it more usable for housing. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilmember Schuler?
Yes. Just a comment. I agree. Obviously, this makes sense with the vacation of the other sections of the alley. But in talking with some of the planning commissioners, just thinking about alley vacations and things moving forward, since we do have a lot of unpaved, unused alleys, things that are on old land, just thinking about what that process is going to look like moving forward. Obviously, I won't be a part of that. But also, you know, kind of noting that half of that alley was vacated by a previous property owner. And in a lot of ways, as we go property by property, it can be very expensive, especially for kind of like large developers to do this. And so having some kind of process where residents can work better together on vacating alleys that don't make sense in between properties. And so supportive of this moving forward, but also thinking that like we're gonna have to do some major work on alleyways just in general in Norman. And also wanted to welcome Libby for your first time to the podium. Great job. And excited that you'll get to be doing more of this with Gunner.
Anything more from council? All right. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you may cast your vote.
All votes have been adopt the ordinance upon final, or second reading, passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
Second.
A motion and second. Motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been adopt the ordinance upon final reading, passes unanimously.
Congratulations, Libby. This is the next item is miscellaneous comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the city council. Due to Open Meeting Act regulations, council is not able to participate in discussion during comments. Remarks should be directed to council as a whole and limited to 3 minutes or less. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up?
Stephen Ellis?
Steve Ellis, Ward 4. I want to draw your attention to a problem that the city of Norman has become entangled with. Weirdly enough, there was an example of this on the agenda that I didn't expect today, but let me use it as an illustration. The proclamation for SEC Day that you adopted earlier contains a shockingly false statement, namely that the SEC was a pioneer in the integration of higher education and athletic competition. That's just not true. SEC schools famously resisted Brown versus Board of Education. They refused to admit black students, period. When, after they were forced to, they refused to play teams with black athletes in the 1950s. The first black athlete didn't play for an SEC team until 1966, a non-scholarship athlete. The last SEC school that had black athletes, that didn't occur until the 1970s. So whoever wrote that proclamation started it off with an absolute howler. I mean, just a ridiculous claim. Why? Because we want to pump up OU joining the SEC, and this is the issue, and we'll say anything that sounds good to do that. Note that not anyone blinked even when they heard this proclamation read, and disregard for the facts is not a good way to proceed. I think there's a more general problem in this regard in Norman. If there's something that's backed by the right people, city officials will say whatever positive that comes to mind to get that thing adopted, rather than actually go look at the actual facts. We've stopped looking for good information and substituted a search for information that serves our antecedent preferences. You don't need to look any further than the Arena TIF discussion to see that. But at least on this, on the SEC proclamation issue, you can fix that. All you need is a motion to reconsider and an amendment to strike the first whereas clause. You'll still get the proclamation. And then renumber. That's what the amendment has to be. It makes the proclamation more meaningful as long as it isn't obviously false. It's going to take a little more work on some of the other stuff. In that regard, let me recommend to you a little brief article. I'll send it to you. There's a short essay on people who say things with just utter disregard for whether or not they're true or false because it serves their interests. It's by a Princeton philosopher named Harry Frankfurt. The name of the essay is called On Bullshit, because that's his technical term for people who disregard truth or falsity when they make claims. They just use it as a sort of cudgel. And I want to suggest that we hear way too much BS. In Norman, it's time to focus on what's true and not just on what people want to hear.
Richard Baxter.
Hello, can you hear me good? Okay, let's set my little camera up here. Don't start my time.
I already did.
Rewind. Okay. I'm Baxter, founder of nonprofit organization Racism Stinks, 501c3, and registered student organization at OU. And I'm going to be graduating next year. All right, our logo is Shadow Skunk. Of course, you know he's a skunk. He's black, he's white, he's stinky. He's a skunk. Nash still. All right, let me go ahead. Our approach is to heal racial divides in our world, not widen them with accusations or false truths, but bring all willing people together through community collaborations. We're real, not woke. Now it's time for the joke. All right? You ready? Okay. A duck, a deer, and a skunk went to dinner at a restaurant one night. You following me? Okay, good. They all went to a restaurant one night, okay? And the deer didn't have a buck, the skunk didn't have a cent, so they had to put the whole meal on the duck's bill. You know this one, huh? Big H, he's like, no. Okay. All right, let me do this real quick. Have you heard the latest joke about a skunk? Never mind, it stinks. All right, let's get to business. So we're looking for help from the community for our community hot dog cookout, August 10th. It's called the Norman Skunk Dog Cookout. This event will lead up to the International Parade this fall. For this Skunk Dog Cookout, Racism Stings would like to collaborate with the Norman Police Department as a partner in their community policing efforts. If you're a parent, a teacher, a student, a city official, a city worker, or just a concerned citizen would like your help. And I ask you to join us only in love and in truth. I know most everyone here will say they love their neighbor. However, can everyone here say that they know it to be true that the 2020 racial unrest and the January 6th Capitol situations are all over? Millions of people around the country are still pushing divisive narratives and half-truths concerning how we all see and deal with race relations. People from both opposing sides are setting up divisive talking points for the day when Trump is back in office to use him as an excuse. Our country is being set up to be more divided and dangerous than happen without your voice.
Okay.
Let's show the country
Baxter.
and the world how to build a collaborative community.
Baxter.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I was at the end now.
You were.
Dan Munson?
Dan Munson, Ward 6. Lauren and Liz, thanks so much for your service. Really appreciate it. I want to talk about the Entertainment District TIF residential noise complaints. One of the things that I didn't see on the design was a highway noise barrier. And I want to make sure that the city of Norman isn't saddled with that cost. Those are about $2 million per linear mile, $2 to $3 million. Another thing that I think needs to be discussed is airport noise. When a jet engine takes off, it's about 120 to 140 decibel. So definitely need to be considerate of that. One of the things with regards to the city of Norman, we built a train in 1887. People built houses around it, and then they complained about noise. And it took 10 years for us to have a quiet zone. So let's not make those same mistakes. Naming rights for the arena contract and service contract are showing between 900 and 1.1 million per year. The research that I did, it shows that naming rights for the arena, our size is about 400,000. So I'd like to have the breakdown on what that looks like. The facility fee in year one showing $650,000, then climbs to 1.2 in year 10. Is this an additional cost per ticket? I'd also like to see a breakout of the events at the arena to be classified as revenue generating versus non-revenue generating. And I'd also like to see what the cost of operating the arena costs per hour. I don't think we know what that is. It'll be different in the summer and the winter. We should know what the cost per hour is on that. Because we will have events at that arena that will not generate a penny. So we need to know how much it's going to cost to operate. Who's going to own the arena? I'm still not clear on that. Did you know Thackerville, Oklahoma is home to the WinStar? Does everyone know that? It's the world's largest casino. They have an arena of 6,500 people. Do you know what the population of Thackerville, Oklahoma is? 410. Do you know what the population was in 2000? 404. Since that casino was built, the population has increased by 6 people. Did you know the annual proposed budget for Thackerville is $720,000? That's the
Luigi Povani?
Luigi Polvani, Ward 4. In the last city council words were spoken, words that I don't think belong up there. I don't think that any representative should say. And while the apologies are appreciated, I did not see anyone in the council speak about censoring what was said. So to me, it reads like the council, mayor, are fine with fucking assholes, not my words, being said around here. Thank you.
Cindy Rogers.
Cindy Rogers, still Ward 4. I'd like to thank Council Members Schuler and Foreman for your service, your outstanding contributions. I'm really going to miss our wonky policy discussions. Earlier this evening, Mayor Heikkila made an astute point. You're not going to hear me say that often, so I said it. It's important to get the right people looking at the right stuff. And I think that's true, and I hope we can apply that to the Arena TIF plan. The UMP TIF Oversight Board did ask the right sort of questions, and I commend them for that. And they looked carefully at the finances of the economic plan, and then they rejected the TIF plan in a vote of 3-2, and the Norman Schools representative abstained. And they pointed out that the math is actually quite sketchy. The ask is for up to spending $600 million. It might not be that much, but that's what's in the plan to finance a project. But the incremental revenues projected from that project would be $540 million. I mean, I'm pretty good at math. You're expecting to spend more than you expect you're going to get in the increment. And I know there's a leverage act, but that's not a done deal. And even not accounting for the leverage act, that just doesn't seem like good use of money to spend more than you expect you're going to get from your tax if you take all the tax dollars. So there's a credible concern, just taking those estimates at face value, that this isn't going to make. There was only one scenario. Everything gets built. The market values are what the developers, what OU says they're going to be. Just one. That's not best practices. So clearly we haven't had the right people looking at the right stuff. We also haven't talked about lead pollution. I know my friend over there, Dan, talked about noise. Well, those piston engine planes are the #1 creators of lead pollution in the US today. The EPA has come out with notices that those are concerns. Any lead pollution is bad for people. And we're going to put housing there, so that's a concern. And I'd just say, let's just not mortgage our future on one big project in one area of town that we've already invested $50 million, $60 million, I don't know the number off the top of my head. We can still look at the right stuff, and we can still invest in our community, maybe not all our eggs in one basket that we've already poured a lot of eggs into. Thank you.
Evan Dunn.
Hi, everyone. Evan Dunn, Ward 7, 1400 Garfield Avenue. This is my guy, Link. He's the king of the jungle. And he doesn't have a throne. He doesn't have a crown because it was gilded. And I remembered that I had mentioned the potential for us to kind of redefine God and thus create a more inclusive community. So I sacrificed his crown to create this little asterisk. I think we could just put some tape and put it right there next to the D, or maybe these two apostrophes. I don't know. I don't see that UN flag up there. I sure was hoping to see that. I guess there's just not a desire to live up to the mission statement. You know, you all are empowered to overrule people on this dais. I don't know if it's a supermajority. Some votes are 8-1. Now, there's certain people up there who obviously have different sensibilities about what the people should say. To infringe upon those rights is to betray not only the past, it's to betray all of your colleagues, it's to betray the future, because those people have ideas, they might have solutions, they care about their community, they're thinking about these problems. He roars. Remember a few weeks ago, whenever and then I kind of, I yawned. Going between those extremes is what the body needs. That's how you absorb the force of gravity evenly. That's how you combine ballet with evolutionary hunting, with Tai Chi, with yoga, with militarism. That's how you can take all of the good that theology and civilization has discovered and bring it together. I know I'm not the only one who has had a transformative experience. The arena, it's just a bad plan. I mentioned to A.D. Castiglione before, I said, look, this is what we need. It shouldn't just be an entertainment district. It should be entertainment and enlightenment. Have a branch of the university out there. Have a branch of the OU library. Have amphitheaters for debate. There's some kind of a requirement.
You have to sign up in advance of the meeting. We take it up when the meeting starts.
She was late. She was late.
I understand that.